Page 571, 4 paragraphs down. The master is smiling, as it seems like he almost always is.
Mhm.
All right. So the master is just at Dakshineshwar, and there has been a sadhu staying there, a wandering monk. And this wandering monk is rather cantankerous, apparently. He's running around yelling at everybody. Ramakrishna himself describes him as a hot-tempered man. He was scolding and cursing everyone. So, and he's a monk. And so he had come to ask Ramakrishna if he could get some fire from the temple there, I guess, for his to carry with him to do whatever a wandering monk does with fire. And when the sadhu had left, we start reading here. He says, when he had left, Bhavanath said to the master with a laugh, "What great respect you showed that sadhu!" Right? Because we read last week that Ramakrishna, bowed to him and stood there with folded hands and paid attention to him and was very, very respectful, stood up when he came into the room, even though this man was being so cantankerous and yelling and mean and crotchety to everyone. And so the master, smiling, knowing the mischief of it all, he smiles. He says, "You see, he too is Narayana, though full of tamas." Right? Tamas is that there's those three gunas, right? The rajas, sattva, and tamas. Raja is that energy, action, movement, vibration. Get going, get going. Somebody who's a rajasic person, they can't sit down. They've always got to be doing something, always running around. And then someone who's a tamasic person is like this guy. They're either very lazy or very crotchety or very, just that type. And then sattva is, the balance, someone who's very balanced. They've got the right amount of tamas and the right amount of rajas and are just balanced in a harmony with being. And so Ramakrishna is saying this guy was full of tamas, and he chose to deal with him as a lesson here for us. Someone who's rude and crotchety and mean like that. Normally on YouTube, we get great joy in watching somebody confront them with the same energy. Also being very tamasic and yelling and calling them a Karen, and they get their karma and put them in their place, and you're like, oh yeah, woohoo, take them down. But Ramakrishna comes the opposite way. That person comes at them yelling and screaming, and he folds his hands and salutes them and stands there quietly and listens to them, and not absorbing, not taking in the energy, but just acknowledging the divinity in the person and choosing to focus on what is behind the actions, knowing the actions have nothing to do with the person. That person is an image of the beloved. That person, before the agitation of mind, before their body, they are the divine spirit, the divine principle of love, wisdom, and being. And so, holy people, when they look at you, they see that in you. They don't see the you that you're dealing with. They don't give you attributes that you give yourself. They look at the pure you, the you they know is hatching, is coming out slowly, 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 and they respond to that. And the beauty in that is that it stops war. It stops that violence. It stops egoism. That's the thing. When you confront with the same energy, it's two egos clashing, and whenever two egos are resisting one another, what are they doing? They're strengthening each other. The ego becomes stronger, and that's the opposite direction of where we want to go as spiritual people. We want to do away with that ego so that what comes through us is unadulterated love, love that doesn't have an agenda, love that doesn't have a condition or a requirement of the person that we're loving, that we just are that oasis. Um, and some people would say, well, you're just being a people pleaser. Well, no, a people pleaser leaves out the seeing God in the other part. The people pleaser is not doing it to please the ego person that's confronting him. He does it in worship of the divine behind that personality. So it's not insincere. It's not a pretense. It has no goal in mind. It's not doing it with the idea of I want to please you. It's doing it with the idea of I know who you really are, and I choose to honor that until this, then let this get out of the way. Let this come and go as it does, and then we can sit and be together. So the master says, you see, he too is Narayana, he too is God, though full of tamas. This is the way one should please people who have an excess of tamas. Besides, he's a sadhu, he's a wandering monk, right? If for nothing else, we should salute that. And this is something when I took my vows in India, we talked a lot about this because in India, monks get an awful lot of respect. You know, you go out hiking in the Himalayas in your robes, and the shepherds are coming over and laying flat on the ground in front of you until you walk by and get out of sight, and then they'll get up and go do their things. And if you don't understand what's happening as a monk, that's very dangerous because you think people are saluting you. And after a while, when everywhere you go, people are saluting you, you're going to start thinking that you're worthy of being saluted. You're going to start thinking you're something, right? And so in sannyas, when we took the sannyas, the senior Swami, very senior Swami, came out and gave us a lecture and teaching, saying that you must understand it is not you that they are saluting. It is the color of your cloth. It is the ideal that you represent that they salute, their honor to the ideal, which does not, you are not that, right? You are simply the conduit of whatever mother has given to you. You're turning around and giving it to them. And the less you in between, the less of that you'll lose before you turn around and give it away, right? So the continued lesson was that the monk is not responsible for being the source of the teaching he gives. The monk's job is to be pure, pure of heart, pure of mind, no selfishness, no thought of me in mind, so that when the Divine Mother fills his hands with that amrita of truth, the devotion, bliss of love, of divine love, that he can hold it in his hands and turn around and give it to the devotee without losing any. If he has ego himself, then it's running through his fingers and he turns around and the best he can give is a drop or two. You can't really, not very effective. So we as devotees, it's the same teaching, just on a different scale. All of us, in us is the divine spirit. And our practice is not an attainment. It's not an achievement. It's a whittling away of the mess we've made, that piled all the dirty laundry we've thrown in the basket of the heart. I don't know where these things come from. Anyway, all the dirty laundry we throw over the basket of the heart, we have to get rid of all that, wash it up, clean it up, hang it up, put it in its proper places, so that the beauty of the divine image within, the image of God in the Christian speak, that the image of God might shine out of us, independent of our ego, independent of our own will, that might shine out. And that is our task. And so he's giving us a clue on how to do it here. See Narayana, see God in each other, salute that God and respond to that God, and ignore whatever that person's temporary condition of egoism has put forward. Don't blame them for it. Don't harass them for it. All of us are working through the same thing, whittling away at egoism. And if you do it this way, you'll help yourself by not exercising your ego, and you'll help them by helping them see that they are not that ego, by looking at them and seeing the divine. I've told you many times when I met my teacher back in 99, Moksha Prana, that when she looked at me, I had no interest in spiritual life at that time. You really wouldn't understand. I had no interest in spiritual life. Let's just leave it at that. And when she looked at me, I just went to see her out of curiosity because I was in India. I thought I should see a teacher like that. Everybody was going to see one. So I thought, oh, that'd be cool. So I went to see her like an object, like a souvenir, you know? And when I sat there watching her and when she made eye contact with me, she changed my life. But one of the things that I really remember is that feeling for the first time in my life that somebody wasn't looking at my face, they weren't looking at my personality, that they were looking deep within me. I felt a certain nakedness actually in her look, because she was looking past all of the faces that I normally put up for people to look at to respond to me at that time in my life. She looked past all of that, and the end feeling, the residue of that experience was that she made me aware of a me, a me before it was me. a divine me, a nature back there. And so Ramakrishna is doing the same thing here to this tamasic sadhu. All right, it goes on. The devotees were engaged in a game of Golokdam. Hazra joined them. The master stood by watching them play. M and Kishori reached heaven, quote. That's the goal of the game. Sri Ramakrishna bowed before them and said, "Oh, blessed are you two brothers." He said to M as an aside, "Don't play anymore. Hazra fell into hell." The master said, "What's the matter with Hazra? Again." No sooner had Hazra got out of hell than he fell back into it again. Everyone burst into laughter. Latu, at the first throw of the dice, went to heaven from earth. He began to cut capers of joy. "You see Latu's joy," said the master. He would have been terribly sad if he hadn't achieved this. Aside to the devotees, this too has a meaning. Hazra is so vain that he thinks he will triumph over everyone, even in this game. This is the law of God, that he never humiliates such a righteous person. Such a man is victorious everywhere. Right? And it's interesting, this has double meaning. It's not that humiliating things won't happen to a righteous person. Certainly we've seen that, but we see that you can't humiliate an egoless person. You can't humiliate somebody who's not concerned about those externals. They're not concerned whether they're manly or not, or whether they're beautiful or not, or whether they're stylish or not, or whether they're fat or not. They're secure in themselves. They know their nature as Satchitananda, and their purpose in life is to allow that to express, to allow the divine to move through them and in them. And things blow against them and it goes right through them. No worries, whatever. They'll laugh along, play along, accept it, right? Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the small couch in his room when Narendra, Baburam, Bhavanat, and M were sitting on the floor. Narendra referred to various religious sects, the Goshpara, the Panchnami, and others. Sri Ramakrishna described their views and condemned their immoral practices. He said that they could not follow the right course because of spiritual discipline, but enjoyed sensuous pleasures in the name of religion. All right. So it's not important what all of their different views and practices were. That's why he doesn't tell us. He's just giving us a warning here. Don't do your religion for satisfaction of the senses, which means don't do it for the happiness of, if you're going to believe in a heaven, don't do it for the happiness of going to heaven. Don't do it to be a good person in the eyes of others. Don't do it to be a spiritual person in the eyes of others, a holy person in the eyes of others. It sounds ridiculous to say these things, but this is what happens to us. We become smug, we become self-righteous, right? And this is when we start pointing at others. This is when we start going after people for their lifestyles and for their beliefs and for their morality, which has nothing to do with you. Yours is to love. How will they know? Jesus says, how will they know your disciples? By your love, the way that you love. And, that's not particular to a particular religion. That's particular to the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal religion, that religion that's in all religions. It's the same teaching everywhere. We love for love's sake. We don't love to convert. We don't love to be right. We don't love to win the argument. We don't love to make people think our church is better than the Baptist down the street, or our temple is better than, the other sect on the other corner. We are able to maintain egolessness by loving for no reason, for no cause at all, simply because it's who we are. It's the expression of God within us. And as we know, when you're living true to your nature, you will have a fulfilling life, not as a reward, but just as a byproduct. Live as you truly are, not according to ego space, not according to the mind, but according to the heart. And in that expression, you will find satisfaction, you will find joy. There's nothing, no grabbing anything, no getting anything, right? So don't enjoy sensuous. Now he's talking here also probably about some of the tantric practices, where they engage in different sexual practices, but they don't do them properly. You know, instead of holding that energy within themselves and bringing it up into the heart chakra and becoming free of their attachments to the body, uh, they use those practices for their own enjoyment, and so that energy that's normally supposed to be used and guided upward, in one way of talking about it, that energy is divine energy. It belongs to God, and when you expend it on your own pleasure, uh, you steal it in one sense. You steal something very precious and use it for something banal at best, when it could have been used for God realization, when it could have been used for you to be true to yourself, where you could have broken your addiction to needing to use other people for your own purposes, for your own pleasures, for your own taking. And that's something that's very difficult in this world when a person begins to grow spiritually, when you realize you go out to places where you used to go thinking you were having fun, and when you go there with spiritual eyes, you see everybody feeding off of each other, right? Literally feeding their senses, feeding their ideals off of each other, and it becomes hard to see, because you see the hurt. You see the hurt of the person who's eating, who's feeding off the other person. You see the needs that are driving them to do that, and you see the needs of the person who's submitting to it as a fulfillment of a need on their part. But it's a hunger that can't be filled that way. It's a hunger we've talked, that was a lecture on Sunday, I guess, that I gave, that there is nothing outside of yourself that you need. And if you're looking outside of yourself in your life to become successful, to make money, to be rich, to be beautiful, to be handsome, to be entertained, whatever it is that you're searching for outside of yourself, that will always be temporary. Nothing wrong with it, except that it's not giving you what you want. There's no condemnation in it, except that it's not going to last. And so the reason the scriptures are so concerned about it is not because those things are a big deal to the divine, but because it causes the divine in you pain, right? It causes you pain. That's why you wake up on Saturday morning swearing you'll never do it again. Oh my God, I'm never going to do that again, right? Because at some point we see it. At some point we know that it's going to hurt, that this is worthless. Is this really all life is about? Am I really just a parasite on the planet sucking pleasure out of experience? Is that really the goal and end of life? Right? Master talking to Narendra. You need not listen to these things. The Bhairavas and the Bhairavis of the Tantric sect also follow this kind of discipline. While in Benares, I was taken to one of their mystic circles. Each Bhairava had a Bhairavi with him, right? So each male spiritual practitioner had a female with him, and vice versa, obviously. I suppose there's other things going on there too. I was asked to drink the consecrated wine, but I said I couldn't touch wine. They drank it. I thought perhaps they would then practice meditation and japa, because in the traditional tantras, like, we've heard that sadhus smoke ganja, smoke weed, smoke marijuana as a practice. And so, in our back in the 60s, we thought, oh, it was spiritual then to all get stoned on marijuana. But missing the point, Vivekananda said, yes, they did, but they would take a very partial hit to help calm the mind, and then they would sit in deep meditation and deep practice from that. They wouldn't go to the point of intoxicating themselves and then enjoy the thing itself, where where the thing became the point. He's like, no, that's not what it is. And so Ramakrishna here, where the tantras are drinking wine, it's for the same thing. It's to, one or two glasses, to relax and to open up, let go, and then to sit in meditation and japa after that. He says, but they were doing nothing of the sort. They began to dance, and I was afraid they might fall into the river Ganges. The circle had been made on its bank. It's very honorable for husband and wife to assume the roles of Bhairava and Bhairavi, right? but it's not so proper for strangers to assume those roles with each other while drinking and partying. He says that's not what religion is. You can't take the practices and abuse them and still think that you're practicing that religion, right? To Narendra and the others, let me tell you this. I regard woman as my mother. I regard myself as her son. This is a very pure attitude. There is no danger in it. To look on a woman as sister is also not bad, but to assume the attitude of a hero, to look on a woman as one's mistress, is the most difficult discipline. Tarak's father followed this discipline. It is very difficult. In this form of sadhana, one cannot always maintain the right attitude for obvious reasons, right? You have to stay sober and you have to stay disciplined to take that energy that's building in you between the two of you, and you need to hold that energy, right? Not express it. Hold that energy and guide it up, 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 up. Taking you with, if you go into Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, you can get all of that teaching if you're interested in that path of moving that energy up through the chakras so that it comes through, and each chakra is more pure than the one before. The first two chakras, the stomach and the organs of evacuation and reproduction, to get all technical now, that most of us live in those two chakras, and we spend our energy through those two chakras, and we never get above them, and we start calling ourselves sexual beings. We start defining ourselves by these habits, and then when we feel that rise of energy within, we think it's sexual energy, and we think, oh, I have to expend it, I have to go and go do whatever. That's a complete misunderstanding. That energy is that ojas, according to Swamiji. It's that pure spiritual energy. And if it's not used and not given to those things and not defined in that way, it can be the energy of spiritual vision, the energy of pure, to live in pure love, in a deep wisdom with others. And so he's warning us here, be careful about these things. There's a lot of people practicing things out there that aren't helpful. And so understand, is this taking away my ego? Is this helping me to break my addictions, to break my needs? And the first question is, am I trying to find something outside of myself? All right. That's the good question to ask. Am I trying to find something outside of myself? If you are, and you're able to not do it or to change the course of it, then do that. If you can't, if you're addicted to it or you're just not willing to quit yet, then all right, go forward, but go forward with awareness. Do not push the thought of your beloved, the thought of God, out of your mind. Make yourself take God all the way into your world with you, because that will be your light that will not let you see the delusion that you often want to see in those places. It will keep you honest. That light of awareness, the thought of God within the mind, right, will keep you seeing properly, will keep you understanding, and eventually will take you beyond it, right? So it's not a big deal. It's not like, oh, it's wrong, and we spend all our energy doing that all the time. That doesn't help. That just puts your mind on it. So it's just like, don't think of a white elephant, that saying. And if you tell somebody not to think of a white elephant, the first thing they're going to think of is a white elephant. So if you sit there and you tell them, don't do that, talk about sin all the time, then you've got your mind dwelling on those things all the time. And then what? Well, that's what you become. And fine, no stigma, but also no bliss, no lasting joy. So it is its own punishment. There's no need for a hell. It is its own punishment because it will leave you endlessly hungry, needing more, wanting more. And as I've said, all desires become more expensive the more particular you become about the flavors you enjoy. And so it's a never-ending circle, and it's brutal. Then you end up getting old and ugly, and things start happening to your body and face, and suddenly you can't have the things that you've trained yourself to find your bliss in. And then where are you but bitter and angry, laying in a bed in an old folks' home? Is the point made? There are various paths to reach God, and each view is a path. It is like reaching the Kali temple by different roads, but it must be said that some paths are clean and some are dirty. It is good to travel on a clean path. Many views, many paths, and I have seen them all, but I don't enjoy them anymore. They all quarrel, right? That's the thing. Religious people love to quarrel, right? And why? It's not because of the religion, right? If I take a class at the university, everybody's like, "Oh, religion's done the worst things to the world." Oh, they're always fighting. And from the egoistic perspective, that's true. But from the spiritual perspective, we understand that it's not the religions that are quarreling. All the religions have agreed that love is the one most important thing. All the religions agree, that to love your neighbor as you love yourself, the golden rule is in all of the traditions. So why are they violent? They're violent because we attach our religion to our ego, and egos divide. Egos divide. And then which doesn't exist. The ego does not have an existence in the self. It's an idea of a self, right? So if you believe yourself if you see yourself as an ego, as a body mind, if you identify that way, then the biggest task in your life is constantly collecting evidence that you're beautiful, that you're smart, that you're rich, that you're handsome, that blah, blah, blah. You're just constantly grabbing stuff to verify your confidence. And so it's another hunger, it's another starvation from the inside out. And when you approach religion that way, you get smug, you get self-righteous. Your religion becomes about running around telling everybody how they should be and what they should be and why you're right and why they're wrong. And then you go do a comparative studies of religions, and you're not looking for the sameness, you're not looking for the depth, you're not looking for whether they get to the goal or not. You are concerned only about being right and why you are right and why they are wrong. And you start studying religion to find difference, which is the only motive of the ego, right? Love always finds sameness. Love always aims for unity, always, right? I remember we used to have an annual Memorial Day in San Francisco, up in Marin County, north of San Francisco. And we'd have like 1,500 people there from all different traditions, because we would always have like 4 or 5 speakers from different traditions, and they would be talking about a topic. And Swami Prabhupada, a great sadhu, would stand up at the beginning every year and he would give the same speech. He'd say, "Today we're gathered to talk about our agreements, to talk about what we share in common." He says, "And if we run out of those things, then you can talk about our differences. But I don't think that we will have time for that." All right. So that's this notion. We look for brotherhood. We look for connection. The way to have a spiritual conversation is to sit and hear the other person and ask questions from the other person until you're able to sit where they're sitting. And when you can sit where they're sitting, the Vedantist then worships their God as his own God, because he sees that all are one, right? And that respect is shared, the strength is built, the brotherhood is established, and both of you then take a spiritual step forward together. That is how religions relate and interact. We look to see our own God in every God. We look to see their God in our God. We look to see the fruit of their practices are designed to be the same as the fruits of our practices. And that they're the most important things in their religion are the same as the most important things in our religion. Love, and love alone. We are to become masters of love, not masters of Sanskrit or Greek or orthodoxy of any kind. We're meant to be masters of love. No one else is here, and you are my own people. Let me tell you something. I have come to the final realization that God is the whole, and I am a part of him, that God is the master, and I am his servant. Furthermore, I think every now and then that he is I, and I am he. The devotees listened to these words in a deep silence. Bhavanat humbly, "I feel disturbed if I have a misunderstanding with someone. I feel that in that case I am not able to love all." Master, Try at the outset to talk to him and establish a friendly relationship with him. If you fall in spite of your efforts, then don't give it another thought. Take refuge in God. Meditate on him. There is no use in giving up God and feeling depressed from thinking about others, right? Or thinking about your own faults, even. It's the thought of God that we want. When we begin thinking about ourselves, this is a bad habit of spiritual people. We often like to pound ourselves as if it's holy, to abuse yourself for being weak or falling or being a mess in life in general, right? We think, oh, if I flail myself, that means I'm humble. That is a very arrogant thing to do, because here the God of the universe has forgiven you, and there you are punishing yourself. Is that humility? That is a very distasteful arrogance. Humility accepts the grace. Humility accepts the grace and understands there's nothing you could do to fix it. To know there's nothing that you could do to make it right. That it is the power of God within you that makes it right, and that he exercises that through grace. That grace is meant to give you permission to keep your mind on the presence of God, which the sin is trying to block you from, to make you forget, right? Grace is meant to give you permission to let go of these things that are small and belong to body, mind, and don't last. So they're not the big deal. The big deal is that by chasing them and indulging in them, you no longer see God. You're looking at your ego. You're no longer looking at the divine, right? So we accept grace, and that way we can feel comfortable in the presence of God without feeling guilt and remorse and all those other things that pop up, right? It gives us the ability to sit with God. And by sitting with God, you become like God. Like sitting in the sun, you get a tan. Sitting with God, you become like God. So that's the point of grace. The sins come and go. Good actions and bad actions come and go. They are not the thing itself. It is the divine image behind it that is exuding pure love that is the thing itself. The ego that is diverting it to the people it likes and doesn't like, choosing, metering it out. That's not the point. The point is the source, and the source is pure, and it's within you. Get out of the way. Let it flow in you.
But how to accept God grace?
How to accept God's grace? Ah,
Yes.
well, you keep thinking about her. Keep repeating the name. Keep repeating the name without fear. When you go in the shrine, be happy. Enjoy the presence. And don't let your mind tell you that you can't see God, or that God is disappointed in you, or that you've been impure today and God is far away.
Mm-hmm.
Take that grace. I used to imagine, because I had a terrible time with this when I first joined. Because I'm telling you, I didn't join a spiritual person at all. And I used to have a chadar, a prayer shawl that I would put on when I went into the shrine. And at one day, a mother, while I was in there, gave me the idea, because I was sitting there feeling like I shouldn't be in the shrine, feeling like it was blasphemous for me to be in the shrine. And I remember mother saying, "You see that shawl? That shawl is
Mm-hmm.
pure grace. When you come in and put that shawl on in the shrine, know that I see only pure love in you. I don't see any of the things that you're looking at." And so you give yourself permission not to look at those things. Not that you ignore them and continue on with them. That's not the point. The point is, stop thinking about them and they will stop of themselves. Stop giving them power and they will recede in time, right? With your discernment and your renunciation together. They will go away. Mother will take them away in the proper time. But you keep singing the name of God. You keep singing the hymns and doing your practice and enjoying God. You know, you look at how many times people are laughing in the presence of Ramakrishna, how much joy there is in his presence. If there's not joy in your practice, then something's wrong, right? Something's wrong. And don't feel guilty about it. Just ask Mother what it is and be willing to see it. And as soon as you shine the light of awareness on it, move on. Don't hold it and become enamored of it. Look at it and say, yes, I see the fault. And move on. Don't let it disrupt your enjoyment of the presence, because God does not, right? And hold on to that. Try, take refuge in God and meditate on him. There is no use in giving up God and feeling depressed from thinking about these others. Bhavanat. Great souls such as Christ and Chaitanya have admonished us to love all beings. Master, love you must, because God dwells in all beings. But salute a wicked person from a distance. You speak of Chaitanya. He also used to restrain his spiritual feeling in the presence of unsympathetic people. At Srivasa's house, he put Srivasa's mother-in-law out of the room, dragging her out by the hair. All right. What to say about that, right? Bhavanat, it was not he, but others who did it. Master, could the other have done it without his approval? What can be done? Suppose a man cannot make another love him. Must he worry about it day and night? Must I waste my mind, which should be given to God, on useless things? I say, Mother, I don't want Narendra, Bhavanat, Rakal, or anybody. I seek you alone. What shall I do with man? Right? So these things that make objects important, why are you so worried about it? You know, people pleaser's worried about it because he wants to be perceived as a nice person, right? So when he's doing it, he's not thinking of God. He's thinking about how nice he's going to look. He's trying to think of the most public place I can do this act of worship, right? The most public place that I can be nice. The most important person I can be nice to, right? We want no motive. How do you have no motive? You identify with silence inside and sit in the presence. Sit in the presence of divine love. Feel and know that to be real, all the love you've ever experienced in your life is divine love, right? But you've associated it with an object. And when that object is gone, you no longer feel it. You no longer see it because you thought it was in the object. When you come to know that all objects reflect the name of God to you, when all the things that you desire in this world have a name of God written within them, your discernment is to think about, why do I love that thing? Why do I enjoy that thing? Why do I want that thing? And keep looking at it, studying it closely with Mother's presence, with the divine presence within, so that you don't get tricked until you see the name of God in it. And then every time you see that object of desire, repeat that name of God and drop the object, right? Repeat the name of God and drop the object. Find your fulfillment within yourself, because the name of God, name and form, can't be separated. So when you say the name of God, the presence of God is invoked within you, right? That's why we chant the name of God. That's why we use a mantra. Because if you say God's name, she must appear. And if you're sitting there quiet enough, you'll know where she appears. You come to know in time. It takes some time, maybe. Depends on you. Depends on your earnestness and sincerity, actually. How soon it will happen, how soon you will come to find that presence, and then come to know that presence has been the only energy of your life. It has been the only thing you've ever wanted. And when you come to know that, there's no time at all.
See, Maharaj, you do that for thoughts and ideas as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything is a thought,
Yeah.
Bindu. There are no objects. There's nothing here. It's the same as when you're in a dream.
Right.
In a dream, everything that you're seeing is a thought within your own mind. There's nothing real to it. And the sages say that in time you'll come to understand that's the nature of the waking dream as well. That everything you're looking at right now is divine. It's God. It is not what it appears to be. It is the same material that creates the dream. It is Brahman. So yes, there's many ways to approach it. You can take that approach. You can go searching for the name of God hidden in the object if you want to leave it in dualism. If you want to leave yourself in relationship to God, you, as Ramakrishna describes it, if you want to taste sugar instead of being sugar, you have that option in this divine realm. God does have heavens where your ideals dwell. There's a heaven for Buddhists. There's a heaven for Jesusists. There's a heaven for Ramists and Ramakrishnaites and Holy Motherites, right? There's heavens in all these places. Ramakrishna says he says that God forms these ideals according to the devotee's devotion, right? Like ice melting or ice forming in the water from the cold. He said, so God takes form within the heart of the devotee and represents himself to the devotee through that form to build that relationship. And then he makes that very strange statement that I didn't find until I'd been in the monastery for 10 years, where he said, there are places in this ocean where the ice never melts, right? And so God is outside of time. And I think he's suggesting that if you don't want to completely dissolve into the divine, into that oneness, then you can certainly decide to taste sugar, to be in the presence as long as you want. And when the time comes that you want to let go of that and merge, then you can, right? This is simplifying things that really can't be talked about. So don't let it be quite as quite as simple or benign as that.
Thank you.
Yes. When the blissful mother comes to my house, how much of the Chanji shall I hear? How many monks will come here, and how many yogis with matted locks? When I attain God, I shall attain everything. I renounced gold and silver, saying rupee is clay and clay is rupee, right? A dollar is clay and clay is a dollar. Gold is clay and clay is gold. With these words, I threw gold, silver, and clay into the Ganges. Then I was afraid that I thought Mother Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, might be angry with me because I had treated her wealth with contempt, that she might even stop my meals. So I prayed to the Divine Mother, "Oh, Mother, I want you and nothing else." I knew that by realizing her, I would have everything. I would get everything. Right? Bhavanath smiling. This is the shrewd calculation of a businessman. The master smiling. Yeah, that's so. Once the Lord was pleased with a certain devotee. He appeared before him and said, I am very pleased with your austerities. Ask a boon of me. The devotee said, O Lord, if you are gracious enough to give me a boon, then please grant that I may eat from gold plates with my grandchildren. One boon covered many things, wealth, children, and grandchildren. Everybody laughs. Hazra was sitting on the veranda. Ramakrishna's joking because he's like, so what? You're thinking of God. Yeah, you're doing it in a worldly way. Yeah, you're doing it in the way of a child. Doesn't matter. You're thinking of God. Remember that story of the man that walked through the forest and he hated Shiva so much that every day we'd make a point of going over and kicking the Shiva lingam whenever he would pass by it. And at the end of his life, he dies and he goes to heaven and he's like, how is it you brought me to heaven? I kicked that lingam every single day. And God is like, yes, you were so devoted that you came and visited me every single day, right? You see, this is how Mother sees you. This is how the divine sees you. There's a wonderful thing. We often think that God is keeping a record of wrongs there in the sky. And we know from Corinthians itself, if you go to the Christian books, love keeps no record of wrongs. And if God is love, who are you to say that he's keeping a record of wrongs? It's your own mind keeping track of your record of wrongs, and it's your own mind that will punish you and make you suffer for it. Transcend your mind through the grace of God and be free of it, right? Let go of these things. Know what your spirit wants and obey that rather than knowing what your body wants and obeying that. One will take you to freedom. The other one will be a very mean master indeed. Hazra was sitting on the veranda, the master. Do you know what Hazra wants? He wants money. His family is in distress and he has debts. He thinks that God will give him money because he devotes himself to japa and meditation. Right? So we have to be careful of that also, not to turn into spiritual materialists, right? That we don't practice our religion to get. This was a big lecture I gave this weekend in Seattle about this idea. When you sit to do practice, are you doing it to realize God? Are you doing it for a motive? Because you're not the doer. That's the primary teaching of so many of the scriptures. You're not the doer. You are God's character and God's dream, right? So why do we practice then? We practice to be able to hold the bliss that we already have within, to become aware of the subtle reality of wisdom, of Ananda, Satchitananda that lies within the self. We practice to surrender. We practice to accept. We practice to see the moment as perfect and to know that we have always been realized, that we have always been in the presence of God, that we are children of the light, and that we are the verb to God's noun, right? That's my favorite way of talking about it. We are the verb of love, the verb of wisdom, the verb of being, and God is the noun of those things. Right? The devotee asks, can't God fulfill a devotee's desire? The master, oh, if it's his sweet will, but God doesn't take entire responsibility for a devotee unless the devotee is completely intoxicated with ecstatic love for him, right? Which means God's not going to force himself on you. And God's not going to make things happen that you don't want to happen. If you don't want to do that, he's not going to make you do that. He'll let you play. Like that's what Holy Mother said. She says, as long as the kid's playing in the playroom happily with his toys, the mother lets him play with the toys and goes on with her business. But as soon as that child cries out for its mother, the mother will run from wherever she is to go pick that child up. Right? And so it's the same in this world. As long as you're happy with the world, be happy with the world. Eventually the exhaustion will wear you out and you'll come to a place where you'll wake up, you'll sit up and say, God, I'm so tired of this. I don't have the energy to do this anymore. And the moment you become tired of it, the moment you start wondering, is this really it? Is this all of it? You can know the divine will run and you'll find someone will come along or something will happen or some situation will occur. Why get into specifics? Something will happen and you'll find your way, right? Everybody comes home in the end, because in the end, God is one without a second. There is no place to be separate from that. And the pretense will be finished when your ego is dissolved. God does not take entire responsibility for a devotee unless that devotee is completely intoxicated with ecstatic love for him. At the feast, it is only a child whom one takes by the hand and seats at his place. Who does that with older people? Not until a man thinks so much of God that he cannot look after himself does God take care of all of his responsibilities. Hazra doesn't inquire about his family. His son said to Ramlal, please ask my father to come home. We shall not ask anything of him. These words almost brought tears to my eyes. Hazra's mother said to Ramlal, please ask Pratap to come home just once. Also ask your uncle to request him to come home. I told him about it, but he didn't listen to me. Is a mother to be trifled with? Right? Actually, we're going to stop here. Well, we'll read this paragraph. Is a mother to be trifled with? Before becoming a sannyasi, right? Before becoming a renunciate, a monk, Chaitanya Deva worked hard to persuade his mother to let him renounce home. Mother Sachi said that she would kill Keshap Bharati. Chaitanya Deva did his utmost to persuade her. He said, Mother, I shall not renounce home if you won't let me. But if you compel me to lead a householder's life, I will die. And mother, even if I go away as a sannyasi, you will be able to see me whenever you desire. I will stay near you. I shall see you every now and then. Only when Chaitanya explained it to her thus did she give him her permission. Narada could not go to the forest to practice austerity as long as his mother was alive. He had to take care of her. After her death, he went away to realize God. Right? So cruelty is not our way, especially toward a mother, right? Now, that's not to say that there won't be some pain of renunciation, because that relationship and its control over both of you has to be broken, because all mothers die and all sons and daughters die. So we have to break that attachment, no doubt. But we don't have to do it for its own sake. We do it with love, out of love, and not until both sides are understanding and willing to bless each other in that effort, in that endeavor. All right. Let's end there for today. I'll turn off the recording.